Hey, what's happening? Welcome back to the GM. I'm your guy, Boulanger, and up next, we're going to jump back into the conversation about the Baltimore Ravens' most pressing needs in this 2023 offseason. And so, in last video, we identified the cornerback position, and we selected Rock Yassin as the cornerback the Baltimore Ravens should pursue, and if they can, sign him simply because he's the second rated best man corner in this year's offseason. And I believe that we need to go with a veteran uh, at that cornerback position instead of relying on a rookie that we may be able to get in the draft. And so the next position up to discuss is going to be the edge rush position. The reason why, naturally, is that the edge rush position and the cornerback position go hand in hand. Um, as a cornerback is able to cover, the edge rusher has more time to get to the quarterback, and as a edge rusher is able to get to the cornerback has to cover less, and so these two positions typically need to be in sync. And we know that the Baltimore Ravens have had trouble getting to the quarterback and finishing the deal over the last couple of years as they've sought to find a pass rusher. Consistently, where they've drafted. David Ajabo in the second round. We saw one game where he flashed and got a quarterback sack and fumble in 2022, and then we saw Odafe take a step back. And so we can't literally go into the season relying on these two young pass rushers to uh, be be dominant because we haven't seen them be dominant up until this point. Specifically, David Ajabo, who missed most of this past season. So let's take a look at our first candidate. So the first guy up is Charles Omanayu from the San Francisco 49ers. And I don't know about you, but anytime I see somebody who played for the San Francisco 49ers, I give attention to only because the San Francisco 49ers defensively have been rock solid for the last 2 or 3 years. And so uh, Charles Omanayu has not had a lot of experience. He's played in 61 games over his career and had his best season, this past season with 4.5 sacks and 20 quarterback hits. And so, and because he has that little of experience, that probably means he has a lot of untapped potential. And I think him being able to come over to the Ravens for a good price and add to that young pass rushing core, I think that he could serve to be beneficial. But let's see who else we have. We got Arden Key. Now, Arden Key played for the Jacksonville Jaguars this past year, but his name should be recognizable to Baltimore Ravens fans because he stopped in and had a cup of coffee last summer with the Baltimore Ravens. And I'm really not sure why they didn't sign him last offseason, but either way, he signed with Jacksonville and had a pretty solid year. He finished with 4.5 sacks, 15 quarterback hits. Uh, and although he's only started in 3 games, he still had a productive season. And so he could be a guy also to come in as a veteran, but still young, and provide some pressure off the edge, and it kind of be an option of going young versus going with old wily veterans. Okay. And so Arden Key can certainly be an option. Okay. Next up, we have Marcus Davenport. Now, Marcus Davenport is a former first round pick by the New Orleans Saints who's never really fully tapped into his NFL potential. You can see him flash at times over his last several years, but this past year, 2022-2023 season, he had a down year, only finishing with a half a sack in 15 games. And so is it scheme? Is it injury? Because we know he's been injured a lot. Or is it enthusiasm? Is it effort? One doesn't really know. And then sometimes when you end up in a bad situation on a team that's kind of going nowhere, you kind of are less enthused. Now that speaks to play and character, but there hasn't been any question about his character coming out of New Orleans. It's just that he's been unproductive, and so I think that a fresh start in a new city such as Baltimore, a defensive-minded team, may give Marcus Davenport the motivation he needs to get his NFL career back on track. Lastly, an old wily veteran that we know well in Ravens Nation, uh, Justin Houston. Justin Houston entering this season will be 34 years old. And I'm not 100% sure if Justin Houston is going to play. He has not made that commitment. No, he contemplated retiring last year, but he came back and was pretty productive. Had 9.5 sacks this past season, playing in 14 games. Although he only started 2 games this past year. Um, I think Justin Houston could be a good candidate for Baltimore, but I don't think he's the best candidate. One, because of his age, but two, because the quarterback position is so up in the air right now. I think Justin Houston, because of his career accomplishments, he just needs a ring to finish off um, his career the right way. And I think that if Baltimore resets at the quarterback position, then Baltimore is not a good place for Justin Houston because there's no quarterback that's ever put his team in position to win the Super Bowl. And at this point, um, the last, the last accomplishment Justin Houston needs is that ring. And so I think that if he chooses to play in 2023, I think it may need to be elsewhere. Although he looked good, he's a mentor, he's a solid guy. Still has some football left, but I think that um, if Baltimore is not ring chasing this year, then Justin Houston may need to play in 2023 in another location. And so that's the only reason why I would say Justin Houston is not the guy we should bring back in 2023. But let's take a look at who we actually picked. The GM picked Charles Omenihu, and here's really why. He's a young guy, uh, and he doesn't have an injury history. Has shown some potential, and a lot of it's still untapped because he would have been playing behind uh, big name players out there in San Francisco. So in order for him to even get run, there would have had to been an injury. There would have had to been leading a game uh, where they put in secondary guys. And so I think as Baltimore is in need of a dominant pass rusher, and I'm not saying Charles Omenihu is that guy, but with all that untapped potential that he may still possess, I think Baltimore could get the best out of him, and he probably would come cheap. Uh, and when I say cheap, I'm talking about maybe 3 years, 20 million, something like that. Um, to Baltimore, which certainly may be a better option than bringing back Justin Houston or JPP, Vince Beagle, Stephen Means. You know what I'm saying? Instead of having a couple of guys at $2 or $3 million a piece, why not get one solid guy, pay him a collective salary of what all three of those guys would have been. And so I think Charles Omenihu uh, should be should be the Baltimore Ravens selection for all those reasons that I named. Stay tuned for a video upcoming of his highlights. We want to highlight that so you guys can see uh, why the selection of this guy in free agency is a good choice. So listen, that's my take on the edge rushing position. Uh, the field is not really stocked this year, and so I took the best of the top 10 guys listed as it pertains to ranking, and so the guys I highlighted are in that top 10. And Charles Omenihu is who we picked. Listen, if you like this kind of content, man, I can keep bringing it to you. Hit the like, hit subscribe, share it with a friend. Again, I'm your guy Boulanger. This is the GM, and I'm out.